Today, we're talking about the stuff that doesn't show up on a clinical exam. The anxiety before a flare, the relationships affected, the days you called in sick but couldn't explain why. This is the episode I've been wanting to make since we started this series. Welcome back to the Flare Report. I'm Maya Chen, and I'm here with James Okafor. We've covered what HS is and how it's treated, but today we're going deeper into what it actually feels like to live with this condition, day in and day out.
And I want to say up front, this episode might hit close to home for some listeners. We're going to talk about mental health, relationships, and some of the harder emotional aspects of chronic illness. If you need to pause, that's okay. Take care of yourself first.
Beautifully said. Okay, let's start with the mental health piece, because the research here is striking.
It really is. Studies consistently show that people with HS have significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety compared to the general population. We're talking 2 to 3 times higher in some studies. And it's not just correlation. There's a real connection between chronic inflammation and mental health.
Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So inflammation in the body can actually affect brain chemistry. The same inflammatory markers that drive HS, things like TNF-alpha and certain interleukins, can cross into the brain and affect neurotransmitters. So the depression that many HS patients experience isn't just a reaction to having a difficult disease. It can be partly driven by the disease itself.
That's really important for people to hear. It's not weakness, it's biology.
Exactly. And then you layer on top of that the very real psychological burden of living with a painful, visible, stigmatized condition, and it's no wonder mental health struggles are so common.
Let's talk about that stigma piece, because HS shows up in places that are already loaded with shame in our culture.
Right. We're talking about armpits, groin, under the breasts, buttocks. These are areas people are taught to hide, to not talk about. So when you have a disease that affects those areas, that causes wounds, drainage, odor sometimes, the shame can be overwhelming.
I've heard from so many people who say they feel dirty, even though they know intellectually that HS has nothing to do with hygiene.
The isolation is profound. People stop going to the gym because they're worried about the locker room. They avoid intimacy because they're ashamed of their bodies. They turn down social invitations because sitting is painful, or they're worried about bleeding through their clothes. The world gets smaller and smaller.
And that isolation feeds the depression.
It becomes a vicious cycle. Isolation leads to depression. Depression makes it harder to seek help, and the disease keeps progressing.
So what do we do about it? What actually helps?
First, and I can't stress this enough, therapy. Specifically therapy with someone who understands chronic illness. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has good evidence for helping people with chronic conditions manage the psychological burden. Some people also benefit from support groups, either in person or online.
We'll put some resources in the show notes.
Please do. And I want to normalize something. If you're struggling mentally, that doesn't mean you're failing at being sick. It means you're human. Getting help for your mental health is part of treating your HS. It's not separate from it.
Okay, let's shift to relationships, because this is something people don't talk about enough.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with partners. How do you even begin to explain HS to someone you're dating?
This is something I hear a lot about in online communities. There's no perfect script, but here's what I'd suggest. First, you don't owe anyone an explanation on the first date. This is your medical information, and you get to decide when and how to share it.
But at some point, if the relationship is getting serious...
Right. At some point, it makes sense to have the conversation. And the way you frame it matters. This isn't a confession. You're not apologizing for your body. You're sharing information about a medical condition you have. Something like, I have a chronic skin condition called HS. It causes flares that can be painful. I wanted you to know because it's part of my life.
Keep it simple. Don't over-explain.
Exactly. And then let them ask questions. A good partner will want to understand. They'll ask how they can support you. A bad partner? Well, better to find that out early.
What about intimacy during flares? That's something people really struggle with.
It's hard. When you have active wounds in intimate areas, physical closeness can feel impossible. And even when the disease isn't flaring, the scarring, the fear of a flare, it affects how you feel in your body.
So what do couples do?
Communication is everything. Talking about what feels okay and what doesn't. Being honest about pain levels. Finding ways to be close that don't involve the affected areas. Some couples find that flares become a time for other kinds of intimacy, emotional closeness, non-physical touch. It requires creativity and patience.
And grace. Lots of grace with yourself and your partner.
Absolutely. And I'd add, this is an area where couples therapy can help. Having a neutral third party to help navigate these conversations can make a huge difference.
Let's talk about work. Because for a lot of people, HS affects their ability to do their jobs.
This is a big one. Sitting for long periods can be excruciating if you have lesions in certain areas. Standing all day isn't better. Some jobs require uniforms that irritate the skin. And then there's the unpredictability. You might be fine one day and barely able to move the next.
How do people handle calling in sick when they can't really explain why?
It's tough. A lot of people feel like they have to lie or be vague because they're embarrassed to say they have wounds in their armpits or groin, and that secrecy adds to the shame.
Are there workplace protections?
In the U.S., HS can qualify as a disability under the ADA, which means you may be entitled to reasonable accommodations. Things like a more comfortable chair, the ability to work from home during flares, more frequent breaks, or flexibility with dress code.
But you have to disclose to get those accommodations.
Right, and that's a personal decision. You don't have to tell your employer everything, just that you have a medical condition that requires accommodation. HR should keep that information confidential, but I understand why people are hesitant.
The fear of being seen differently, of being passed over for promotions.
It's real. There's no easy answer here, but I'd encourage people to know their rights and weigh their options. Sometimes accommodation makes the difference between being able to work and not.
Okay, last topic. Finding support. Where can people go when they need to talk to others who understand?
The online communities are incredible. The HS subreddit, that's r/hidradenitis, is active and supportive. There are Facebook groups, some better than others, so look for ones with active moderation. My HS Team is a platform specifically for people with HS, and the HS Foundation has resources and sometimes hosts in-person events.
What should people look for in a good support community?
A few things. Moderation that keeps out misinformation and nastiness. A balance of venting and practical advice. People at different stages of the disease, so you can learn from those ahead of you and support those behind. And a general vibe of we're in this together, rather than everything is hopeless.
Because doom scrolling through worst-case scenarios at 3 in the morning helps no one.
Exactly. Community should lift you up, not drag you down.
Before we wrap up, I want to speak directly to anyone who's really struggling right now. Maybe you're listening to this in bed because it hurts too much to sit. Maybe you canceled plans again this week. Maybe you're wondering if things will ever get better.
They can get better. Treatment is improving all the time. The community is growing. You are not alone, even when it feels like you are.
And if you're having thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please reach out. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7. Just call or text 988. Your life matters. Your pain is real, and you deserve support.
HS is hard. Living with it is hard, but you don't have to do it alone.
That's our episode. Next time, we're talking about finding the right doctor, how to build a care team that actually helps, and what to do when you feel dismissed. It's a practical one, and I think you'll find it useful.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been the Flare Report. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Before you go, a quick thanks to our sponsor, Violytic.
Violytic is a free symptom tracking app designed specifically for people with chronic skin conditions. You can log flares, track triggers, take photos, and see patterns over time.
It's actually really helpful for those doctor appointments we talked about. Instead of trying to remember when your last flare was, you've got it all documented. Photos, pain levels, what you were eating, everything.
Check it out at violytic.app. That's VIOLYTIC.app. It's free to download.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.